Imagine the following workplace scenario. A newly appointed female manager fills 9 open staff positions. 8 of the hires are women, and 1 is an openly gay employee. Brian, a highly qualified and consistently high-performing cisgender male employee, is considering applying for the 10th and final position. Although Brian is not explicitly discouraged from applying, conversations with several recent hires leave him with the strong impression that cisgender male applicants are unlikely to be selected. Despite his hesitation, Brian submits his application. He is not selected for the position. Believing that his gender played a role in the decision, Brian files a discrimination complaint. The question is this: does Brian's claim have legal or organizational merit? And what factors would determine the answer? Hello, I'm Dr. Billy Vaughn, and welcome to another Fairness in Action presentation. I am the founder of D2I.com, a continuing education, leadership development, training, and consulting organization. Since establishing the Academy in 1998, we have certified thousands of professionals across the public and private sectors. This presentation is designed as a continuing education resource. Today, I will focus on the role of fairness in talent management and why it is essential to building effective, sustainable organizations. Most organizations generally value fairness, especially where power, authority, and access are unevenly distributed. Yet there is inconsistency in what fairness means, and few know how to apply it in hierarchical organizations shaped by differences in race, gender, socioeconomic background, and immigration status. The hierarchy itself is not the problem. Unfairness arises when there is considerable cultural diversity that is stratified by identity groups, such as race and gender, and decisions within the hierarchy create or reinforce systemic disparities. When fairness is poorly defined, decisions become subjective, emotionally driven, and contested. Stratified cultural diversity worsens the problem due to historical identity group politics. Unfairness that results in discrimination, oppression, and exclusion is illegal. When fairness is clearly defined, it becomes measurable, defensible, and a foundation for trust, particularly in organizations where decisions flow from the top down. In public agencies such as transit authorities, workers unionize in response to systemic fairness failures, including power dynamics, procedural safeguards, and the erosion of trust over time. In this presentation, I define workplace fairness with a particular focus on managing talent in hierarchical, culturally diverse organizations, and the different types of unfairness that can arise. The goal is to increase understanding of how to mitigate real and perceived unfairness in organizations. Fairness is the consistent and transparent application of rules, processes, and decisions, supported by appropriate participation and clear explanation, so that people receive equitable consideration based on their roles, responsibilities, and circumstances. Fairness is not sameness or colorblindness. It is a justified differentiation based on differences that can be explained, defended, and trusted. Fairness in culturally diverse hierarchical organizations involves addressing historical and persistent institutional barriers that continue to shape access and opportunity for certain groups while upholding clear performance expectations and standards of excellence. Fairness is the stabilizing force that prevents hierarchy from devolving into favoritism. Fairness is not an abstract. This distinction matters profoundly in hierarchical organizations. Hierarchies exist to create clarity: who decides, who is accountable, and who executes. But hierarchies also concentrate power. When power increases without transparency and role clarity, fairness erodes. Common symptoms include decisions that feel arbitrary, exceptions that benefit some but not others, silence from leadership when decisions are questioned, and confusion between authority and entitlement. The result is predictable: disengagement, frustration, feelings of exclusion, cynicism, increased risk exposure, and declining trust. Fairness is the stabilizing force that prevents hierarchy from devolving into the reproduction of past injustices and inequities. Fairness is not abstract. It shows up in 4 observable dimensions. The first dimension is procedural fairness: how decisions are made. People will accept outcomes they dislike if they trust the process. Procedural fairness exists when rules are applied consistently across levels, criteria are documented and knowable, decisions follow established processes, and appeals or reviews are possible. When procedures are unclear or selectively enforced, hierarchy loses legitimacy. The second is distributive fairness, or the outcomes people receive from decisions. Hierarchies naturally produce unequal outcomes in areas such as pay, authority, access, and recognition. Fairness requires that these differences align with roles, responsibilities, and contributions that are proportional and explainable, and not influenced by personal preference or group identity. Unfairness is not simply unequal outcomes, it is unjustified inequity. The third type of unfairness is interactional fairness, or how people are treated. This is where many leaders underestimate the damage their actions, intentional or not, may cause. Interactional fairness means respectful communication, regardless of rank, clear explanations, especially for adverse decisions, no humiliation, dismissal, or condescension. People remember how they were treated long after they forget the outcome. The fourth is contextual fairness, or how power is used. Authority always includes discretion. Fairness governs how that discretion is exercised. Contextual fairness exists when exceptions to the rules are rare, justified, and documented. Power serves an organizational purpose in contextual fairness, not someone's ego or convenience. Leaders are able to explain why discretion was used. Unchecked discretion is the fastest way to undermine trust in organizations. Fairness is not abstract, nor is it about treating everyone the same. As you've seen, fairness shows up in four observable ways: how decisions are made, how outcomes are distributed, how people are treated, and how power is exercised. In hierarchical organizations, differences are inevitable. What determines fairness is whether those differences are justified, explainable, and trusted. Unequal outcomes may or may not be due to unfairness. Unfairness is inconsistency, opacity, disrespect, or unchecked discretion. When fairness is clearly defined across these four dimensions, it becomes measurable, defensible, and a foundation for trust, especially where authority and power are unevenly distributed. Unfairness is baked into hierarchical organizations by default. But that becomes problematic only when perceptions of inequities in how policies, procedures, and rewards arise. You have just learned that fairness in hierarchical organizations is not abstract. It shows up in how decisions are made, how outcomes are allocated, how people are treated, and how power and discretion are used. Fairness exists when these four dimensions positively work together. When one breaks down, trust erodes, even if the outcome appears reasonable. Now that we have covered the definition of fairness and its various dimensions, let's see what you have learned. In this knowledge check, select the best answer for the question. Which scenario best demonstrates fairness across all four dimensions in a hierarchical organization? Select the best answer: A, B, C, or D. A. A leader grants a promotion based on personal trust, explains it informally, and documents the decision only after complaints arise. B. A leader applies documented criteria consistently, aligns outcomes with role requirements, communicates respectfully, and clearly explains why discretion was used. C. A leader treats everyone the same by giving identical pay increases regardless of role or performance. D. A leader uses discretion frequently to reward loyalty, believing good intentions ensure fairness. Write down your answer or remember it. The correct answer will be provided. The correct answer to the knowledge check is B. The fair leader applies documented criteria consistently, aligns outcomes with role requirements, communicates respectfully, and clearly explains why discretion was used. The question posed at the beginning was whether Brian's gender discrimination claim has legal or organizational merit, and what factors would determine the answer. You have learned that fairness is not simply a value statement. It is a governance discipline. The degree to which Brian's case has merit depends on how well management can articulate how the hiring decision was made, and was systematically based on job-related competencies. In conclusion, in hierarchical organizations, fairness is what transforms authority into legitimacy and power into trust. Without it, hierarchy becomes fragile. With it, hierarchy becomes functional, resilient, and credible. Hierarchies and differences in power alone do not create unfairness. It is due to creating unfair outcomes and experiences without credibility or justification within the hierarchy. If you find this resource valuable, please consider learning more about our continuing education courses, certification training, and consulting and training services. Follow me on LinkedIn, buy my book, Reimagining Fairness by Billy Vaughn on Amazon. Thank you and see you at the next Fairness in Action event.